It is GameDay Express. It is week 6. And there's a lot of football that's been played, and there's a lot of questions still needing to be answered. Like, who's coming out of what conference? Who's going to be making the playoffs? Like, there's a lot of uncertainties. Normally, at this point, you can normally say there's about 2 or 3 teams that are really hold their own. Okay, they're going to the SEC championship, or they're going to the ACC, or they're going to the Big 12 or the Big 10. But there's a whole lot of uncertainties. There's still talk about, can the group of 5 put out two teams into the playoffs? There's a lot of uncertainty in the Heisman race. I don't think the Heisman race has really come into its own. I think the group of guys that are going to be in the Heisman contender from this week on are really going to start separating themselves. There's been a bunch of different names falling in and out over the first 5 weeks of football. And I would say hopefully this week we'll start really getting to see who's going to be those true Heisman contenders. Now, there is a lingering question that I've seen pop up across social media that I want to address real quick, and that is coaching. Before we get into the whole game day talk and Heisman conversation, I want to go ahead and talk about the coaching situation. There's been a category coming out, a lot of people choosing, who's your great coaches, who's the top 10 coaches, who are the elite coaches of today's game. And for me, I have my own little list. The 3 coaches I have at the elite tier are Kirby, Kellen DeBoer, are probably the 1 and 2. When it comes to the greats, there's a bunch of greats. The reason why I have Kellen DeBoer in the elite tier with Kirby, yes, he hasn't won a natty yet, but what he's done at Washington, coming over to Alabama, what he did at Washington was highly impressive. That's before NIL really took place. Like, he utilized the transfer portal before the transfer portal really became this huge facet of college football. And then you look at what he's doing at Alabama. Yes, he had some road losses, but he's still dominating the other top coaches in the league. He's dominated other top coaches in college football. I mean, he's like 16-3 against top 15 opponents. He's undefeated against Dan Lanning, Steve Sarkisian, and Kirby Smart. I mean, those are coaches that you would consider great coaches in today's game, and he is better than all of them. So I cannot not put him in the elite category if he's undefeated against one of the elite coaches that I see in today's game. But there's a bunch of coaches that are in that great category that just haven't made that step into the elites. Like Dan Lanning, he's a great coach. Winning another Big Ten and possibly being in the Natty would more than likely elevate him to that next category. Steve Sarkisian, he's a coach who's kind of lived in this mediocrity zone, kind of like Lane Kiffin, who just, you've put out great teams. You can put out teams that win 9+ seasons. You can put out teams that are definitely fighting for an SEC championship. You're putting out teams that are going to more than likely make the playoffs with the new playoff system. But can they finally get over the hurdle? Can they win the SEC? Can they compete for the national championship? Can they at least make the national championship game? So that's why I don't necessarily have those two guys in the elite category. That's why I've only limited it to 2 because, like Steve Sarkisian and Lane Kiffin, they're just when will they finally get over that hump? And then you look at guys who are kind of coming out the door, like Dabo Swinney would definitely be in the elite category, but I feel like he's been taking this slow but steady, decline in his coaching career. The 1-3 start doesn't necessarily help him. He's done elite things. I'm not going to say his coaching career hasn't been elite, but as in today's game, he's been slowly declining, and that's why I kind of have him rolling around the great category. If he stays in college football and he keeps declining, that will probably keep pegging down and more than likely kind of hurt the facet of his entire career because he hasn't changed with the times. And that's one of the things, like seeing Nick Saban leave. He was like, okay, I'm not going to go with this new NIL era. He's getting out of the game. And he did. And I think that's something Dabo's going to have to look at. Is he going to change with the times, or is he just going to go ahead and get out of the era? And for me personally, I would say Dabo has to get out of the era. Now, 2 coaches that a lot of folks I've seen toss around, Mike Norvell. talking about how he's a great or good coach. And I'll say he's a good coach. But someone that I compare to him is Ryan Day. I mean, both guys are what I would consider program managers, not necessarily coaches of the game, right? Kirby Smart, he's a coach. Dan Lanning, he's DC. He made the play calls. He still makes play calls at Oregon. Steve Sarkisian calling the offense. Kirby calling the defense. Lane Kiffin calling the offense. Like, all these coaches are still involved with the play calls and calling decisions of certain aspects of the game. While Ryan Day, and this is the biggest knock to him, yes, he had steady career. If you're at Ohio State, there's nothing but success for you. And I'll say that same thing for Alabama, Georgia. Like, you go to these places, you have nothing but success. I mean, getting in a top level, top 10, top 5, even top 3 recruiting class is a given when you go to certain programs. And, you know, the biggest thing on Ryan Day was, oh, he's a top 3 recruiter. He has one of the best win percentage in college football. And when you go to Ohio State, those are a given. Like, anybody going to Georgia before Kirby got there, when Mark Richt was at Georgia, that was a 9-win team. That is a 10-win team. That is a team fighting for an SEC championship. That has been like that for all the years of Georgia's existence. They were an SEC contender. Alabama has always been an SEC and national championship contender. You go to certain programs and the expectation is that of a national level team. So anything less is a disappointment. So all you have to do is just utilize your resources around you, and you're going to have a national level team. That's what Ohio State is. That's what Ryan Day inherited when he went there, or when he became the head coach there. He inherited a national level team when all you have to do is just manage the program. And he's done that well. I'm not saying he's not a great coach, but he's not an elite coach. And I've seen a lot of folks say he's an elite coach. He's not elite because of the facet of you have to coach the game. You have to, in my opinion, make defensive or offensive play calls. He brought in one of the greatest offensive coordinators in the game. He brought in one of the best defensive coordinators in the game. And then they spent $20 million on a roster. When you do all that and you finally win the national championship, something that you should have done years past, I can't put you in the elite category because it took so much with a new era to finally give you the national championship that you should have won years ago. So, for those reasons, Ryan Day isn't an elite coach for me. I'm not going to say he's not a great coach. I mean, being a program manager takes a lot. I mean, you have to understand the game. You got to understand your players. You got to understand the coaching staff that you have. So he's a great coach, but he's just not an elite coach. That's my rambling session of the day. I'm not going to ramble on about that any longer. So, the biggest point of the day is week 6. And when it comes to week 6, there's not a whole lot of top tier games when you look at cross college football. Like, they start at 12 o'clock. You got Georgia versus Kentucky, Michigan versus Wisconsin. You got Clemson versus North Carolina, probably the biggest game for the 12 o'clock slate. You have Dabo versus Bill. This is basically two good coaches, or two great coaches coming neck to neck. Bill coming into college football. Dabo's been in college football, and you got one kind of on the decline, one trying to find their footing in college football. So, overall, this will be a good matchup. It's a home game for North Carolina. The likelihood of them winning this matchup still, even with the decline of Dabo, this is a very young team. This is a very meshed team for North Carolina. A lot of transfers, still trying to find their footing. Bill's trying to still find that identity within his program. Clemson, if they can just come together long enough to just win out 15 minutes a quarter. I mean, that's all they got to do. Just play it by a quarter, man. If Dabo can just play it by a quarter, he should come out. He has the experience in this game. He has the players with the experience on the roster. The coaching staff has experience together. I mean, this should be a Clemson win. But with everything Clemson's gone through, we can see how that is. You got the great Navy versus Air Force. I mean, these two teams run the ball better than anybody. So if you are a rushing fanatic, you definitely going to watch that game. But I mean, outside of 12 o'clock, that's all you really got. And then the real fun starts about 3:30. You got Texas versus Florida. Texas has to go to the swamp. You got Vandy versus Alabama. Boise State versus Notre Dame. Virginia versus Louisville. I think these are some marquee matchups to keep your eyes on, especially for Boise State. And then the reason why I say keep your eyes on Boise State is because early in the season, when South Florida beat them, the South Florida season is going to be determined on how Boise State plays. So if Boise State can come in, go to Notre Dame, throw on a close game, 14-point game, 10-point game, as long as it's a 2-score game, even if Boise State loses, Boise State would have competed with a top 25 Notre Dame team, which would make the win that South Florida has over them a little bit better, giving South Florida a little leg up. And I'm saying this because I'm a South Florida advocate. I think as long as they win the American, even as a one-loss, they are in the playoffs. I think they have the best resume from a group of 5 to make the playoffs. It all depends on the performance of the other teams that they have beaten. But as long as Boise State, and see, same thing with Florida. Like, if Florida can finally figure out how to move the ball offensively, like, that's the biggest problem for Florida is they're just so sluggish on offense. Like, I haven't seen a team, like, watching the Miami-Florida film, prepping up for my game day pick. You know, I was watching the Miami-Florida film just because I wanted to see what Miami was doing defensively to kind of disrupt that offense and, you know, checking out how that offense is going. And watching them, they were just stabbing themselves in the foot. Like, it just seemed like every drive, Florida was doing something that just didn't make sense. Like, their quarterback dropped 6-7 yards from the snap, right? But you have the offensive line that is sitting in their front pocket. Like, the offensive line drops as deep as the quarterback does. At the same pace. There's no, like, slow pace in the drop. There's no, like, they just snap the ball and they say, oh, I'm just going to go sit in the quarterback's lap. Like, they're not pushed in the quarterback's lap. They're not, you know, finessed into the quarterback's lap, anything. They just say, I'm going to go sit in the quarterback's lap, and that's how I'm going to block for the quarterback. And doing that, you're not giving your quarterback space. You're not giving him the ability to, like, read the field because all he sees is his O-lineman just pass probing straight into his face. Like, a quarterback can't do anything with that. So, not saying DJ hasn't made some bad plays. I mean, watching that game, DJ made some bad calls. Watching DJ film, he's made some bad calls. For whatever reason, he is not playing like he did last year. But that offensive line's not helping him. So and the offensive coordinator, I can go on all day about how bad that offense has been. The OC, what the OC has been calling, how the offense is just overall performing. If they can just figure it out for a game, that's all they have to do. Just figure it out for one game to get the momentum going, to get that right mindset offensively. And a home game against Texas, a offense who's barely finding its footing because of the struggle that it's had early in the season. A defense that's going to be top-notch. Florida's not going to get the easy leg up on defense. I mean, they're going to end up facing all these top-tier defenses throughout the season. And Florida's just going to have to match them physically on the offensive side. They have no choice. If they want to turn this thing around, if Napier wants to save his job, they have to figure out how to turn this offensive slugfest, like turn it into an offensive slugfest. Make the sluggish offense come alive some way. And you mosey on down. You know, you go into your 7:30, your 7 o'clock slot. Texas Tech versus Houston. That's a home game for Houston. They've been a slugging team. They're going to throw you their best hits. Do I think they're going to be able to get one up on Texas Tech? No. But is this a game Texas Tech needs to come prepared for? Most definitely, because Connor Wegman's not a quarterback to sleep on. I mean, you sleep on Connor Wegman. I've watched his play enough this season. He's going to bring you everything in the table. the running back that they have, Connor, I can't think of his whole name, but the running back they have, you just let him mosey on through the offensive line, he's going to give you a run for your money. You know, he's going to put a shoulder on a defender. I love their running back. I think their running back's, to me, I'm not going to say he's the best, but watching him play is phenomenal. I love watching him play. So this is a game Texas Tech definitely needs to watch out for. And you mosey on down, you got Missouri, who stapled a top 3, top 5 defense so far this season. Or in Minnesota, they have to go to Ohio State. Could that top tier defense really throw problems into Ohio State's offense? Probably not. But still, fun matchup. Texas A&M versus Mississippi State. Mississippi State having to go to A&M. That's definitely going to be a fun matchup to watch. Mississippi State's been a promising team. This has not been the same old struggling Mississippi State that can't score the ball, that can't stop teams on defense, that just can't win at home. I mean, this team, yes, they still haven't won an SEC game in almost 2 years, I think. So this is going to be a struggle if you can win your first SEC game, but definitely a fun one. And then A&M versus FSU. I think this game is definitely going to be the game of the night. I don't think there's really any other games besides Mississippi State versus A&M that can really live up to the game of the day. And then your 10:30 game. I think your 10:30, they finally gave us a really good 10:30 game. You got Duke versus California. I think Duke, a team that has its lows this early in the season, but has definitely had its highs. You have Cal that has had its highs. I mean, they have been productive when it matters. They got a very young quarterback that is slinging the rock better than any quarterback in the country right now. So you got a Duke quarterback that is definitely slinging it better than any quarterback in the country. I mean, Messiah, I want to say was his name for Duke. If he just does the right things, I mean, this is a guy that's really, like, they're saying could be a Heisman contender next year. So you got a really fun quarterback matchup right here. Now, to go ahead and jump ship into the segment, kind of running a little long, we're going to go ahead and go into my game day picks of the day. It's really hard to choose what my game day picks were going to be. To kick us off, though, we got Vanderbilt versus Alabama. And for me as a Georgia fan, I'm just going to go ahead and put it out. I'm going Vandy. I'm going to believe in Daniel Pavia. I'm going to believe in what that Vandy offense can put out. I'm going to believe they can go into Bama and hold their own. For Alabama, I think this is a game. This is a home game they got to watch out for. You know, a lot of people, I've seen people say this is kind of a trap game. This is a rat poison game. This is the second time in a row, for the second year, if you really look at it, that where Alabama played a close game against Georgia, got the win, then they got to play Vandy. Can Vandy pull off the same magic? I'm going to believe because I'm a Georgia fan. I've seen what they did against us, and I'm not rooting for Alabama. I'm just going to keep it simple. To give you the film aspect of this game, Alabama has not done anything differently from week 1 to week 6. The only change is that their quarterback is getting better. Their quarterback play, Ty Simpson, is evolving throughout the weeks. They still have top-tier offensive line. But their biggest problem, and I don't think it's going to be their offense. I think offensively, they can really get the job done. And where Vandy's going to have to come in on that defensive side is bring that pressure. Make Simpson uncomfortable. Because we've seen how he's involved throughout the season. And we've seen it in the Georgia game. You give him time. He's getting the ball off quick. He's reading the defense a lot better. So you got to disguise. Make him think one thing's coming. Bring him with a whole different thing. You know, make what you put out on the field. You know, drop a cover 1, but then it's really a cover 2. Or give them a cover 3 look, and then it's a cover 1, or, you know, bring in pressure from the left, but it really came from the right, or, you know, squeeze the middle. Do something to, like, cause disruption to how Simpson's playing the game. And then offensively, Alabama's not strong on the D-line. I've said this since the beginning of the season. I've said this Last week when I was watching film for the Georgia-Bama game, Bama on the defensive line is not strong. They're going to allow rushing yards. They did it against FSU. They allowed it against Georgia. If Vanderbilt can utilize that weakness with Sean Alexander, with Lassiter, who's a home run ball type of player, with Diego Pavia's legs, and just run down their throats, and they have a true chance in this game. So to me, the two biggest factors is, one, Vandy's going to have to utilize the clock and bring disruption to Ty Simpson. And two, Alabama's just going to have to continue to bring their style of ball. They're going to have to limit the attack that they are going to get on the rushing side for defense. That defensive lines are going to have to step up. If not, this game can very well get out of hand for Alabama. We've seen it already, how weak they are in the rushing side of the ball on their defensive side. So, for me, I'm pulling Vandy. For my sleeper game of the day, I got Cincinnati versus Iowa State. Iowa State, I've done call upset on them twice already this year. I'm just going to rock with them for a third time. Because to me, I think Cincinnati has at quarterback has been a tremendous quarterback. I think he only has one turnover to 16 total touchdowns. And he's only been sacked once. That Nebraska game was the worst game Cincinnati had, but it built character. Ever since that Nebraska game, we've seen a different Cincinnati team. We've seen a Cincinnati team perform at a different level. We've seen Brandon Sorby has performed at a different level. For Iowa State, to me, there's been a lot of inconsistencies in their play. I think they've brought back a lot of key players who were dealing with injuries throughout the early part of their season. We've seen probably the most dominating win that they've had so far against Arizona last week. So this is an Iowa State team that's finally coming together, finally finding its footing. Rocco Beck is finally becoming that guy that everyone believes he is out of the Big 12. So for Iowa State, this is another key win that if they can win this, their legs are definitely turning for the Big 12 title. The wins, their season is definitely going on the up and up on making the playoffs. For Cincinnati, though, you've turned your season around since that Nebraska loss. You had a terrible quarterback day. You had a terrible offensive day. Couldn't really get your right players in set. You couldn't really get anything momentum going. But you came together. Y'all took that loss. You took it on the chin. And y'all just elevated from there. And offensive line-wise, y'all have protected Sorby. Y'all have done different things to kind of spread out the offense. And that offensive juice that y'all have discovered has been a great thing for y'all. Y'all went toe-to-toe in Kansas with a Kansas offense that if they can just figure out their defense, Kansas was definitely a contender in the Big 12. But that defense for Kansas is just so it's just so hit and miss. So for Cincinnati to be able to match that offensive firepower that Kansas brought in, great win for them. And for a team I think is really underrated in the Big 12. So that's, for all those reasons, I'm rolling with Cincinnati. And then for my game of the day, I kind of mentioned it when it came to the 7:30 slot. There's two games that can definitely be called game of the day. But for me, I'm going Miami FSU. Starting off with Miami. When you look at Miami, this is a team that is definitely ACC contender caliber. This is a team that if they just continue to be consistent, they can come out of the ACC. But for me, I think those holes that I've been watching are finally coming to surface. We've seen it a little bit in the South Florida game, even though that was a rout. Carson Beck under pressure. Is he comfortable in pressure? We kind of seen where his interceptions came through. And then you watched in the Florida game. Is he comfortable in pressure? Once he got that one hit, he just started throwing these weird passes he wouldn't normally make. He went 50% on the day with an interception. It was the running game and the defense that kept them in the game. And if Florida could have just figured out how to score the ball, that's a loss in Miami's column. But Florida just can't figure out how to get any offensive momentum going. I spoke on that earlier. So I think that is a win, but it's a questionable win that you need an eye on, and definitely there's a lot of concerns that Miami showed for FSU. And Miami's strength is stopping the run, but they showcase later in that back half that there is some vulnerabilities in that running game. And for FSU, that's where they thrive. They thrive running the ball. This is a team that I've spoke on it. They're one of the best running teams in the country. They have one of the best running offenses in the country. Between Tommy, what they got at running back, the way they can utilize their speedsters from the receivers, the way they utilize Squirrel White, what they can do in the running game is phenomenal. The key question is, this is something that I hit on, earlier on in the season, especially when I was watching the Bama film. FSU's D-line is not the strongest. It's reasons why they got beat in the UVA game. They're going to have to bring pressure. They're going to have to stop the run. They're going to have to hone in on Carson Beck. If they can do that early, being a home game for FSU, if they can just repeat the way they honed in early on Alabama, this is definitely a game FSU can very much win. I'm not going to say it's going to be a landslide like Bama, but this is definitely a game they can pull out. For me, I haven't really been a Miami believer. Are they starting to kind of make me believe a little bit? But I'm still a Carson Beck doubter. I believe with enough pressure, you're going to get him scared in the pocket. I've seen it too many times already this season. I've seen it so many times as a Georgia fan. Carson Beck, he panics under pressure. So for FSU, the key things for their win tonight will be getting pressure to Carson Beck and utilizing what you do best. Do not allow Tommy to become one-dimensional. And for Miami, it's the same thing I said for the UVA game. Do not allow Tommy to open the pocket. Do not allow Tommy to utilize his legs. You create a one-dimensional game, then very well you can win this. If you allow Tommy to open up the offense with his legs, this is going to be a game that's going to be really hard for Miami to win. So for my 3 games, I got Cincinnati over Iowa State, Vandy over Alabama, and FSU over Miami. Like always, let's enjoy some college football, and I'll catch you on the next Gameday Express.